I'm Zinta Aistars with Artbeat at WMUK. Happy to be a part of Kalamazoo Lively Arts.
This is your life, Zinta Aistars. How's it feel?
It's a part of my life, not all of it, but yeah, it's a very interesting and enjoyable part.
Very nice. Well, you are now on the other side of the microphone as we learn a little bit about your story and what you do.
Less comfortable.
Isn't it really? Yeah. Well, good, because it's well-deserved, and we want to know about you, your journey, and, of course, the art that you present. In storytelling fashion over the radio, how'd you get into this?
You know, I've sometimes asked myself that question because my background is as a writer in English. That's my degree. Did not ever think about broadcasting. And how I got into the WMUK studio was, at that time, I worked in communications at Kalamazoo College. And I was always bringing our most interesting guests to be interviewed. And I'd sit quietly in the corner and watch and listen, and that was it. And then at some point, somebody asked me, would you like to sit on this side of the desk? How that happened, I'm not quite sure. But I thought, okay, and how am I going to learn all these buttons and all of that? But, you know, it was fun.
Yes.
So at some point, I went on the other side of the desk. And at first, I was given about 4 minutes for a program called Arts and More. With a partner. She did 4 minutes, I did about 4 minutes. And then a few years down from that, somebody asked if I would like to do an expanded show to a whole 9 rich minutes. And it was called Between the Lines. I would talk to authors anywhere in Michigan with a Michigan connection. And then that evolved into Artbeat, where I was allowed to talk to all kinds of creative people, any kind of artists, not just authors. But then I shrank my territory to more or less greater Kalamazoo, southwest Michigan.
Any lack of artists in your world?
Oh, goodness, no. I actually thought at first, gosh, you know, if this is just this region here, how am I going to fill every single week? And I find that, you know, I've tried very hard not to repeat, so everybody gets a chance. I have had very few repeats over the years, and only because they've done something really wonderful, which all of them have. But I try to give everyone a chance at it. I try to find people who maybe haven't had much of a voice and give them one. But repeat, no.
Continuing on giving your guests a voice, what do you look for? What is the criteria for an artist to get on your show and to share their story?
Something unique, of course. That's something interesting, something a little different than everybody else is doing. Or if they're really gaining a lot of traction out there. For instance, Bonnie Jo Campbell is a big name in the Kalamazoo area and getting to be a big name even nationwide. She's won a lot of awards. She's one of the very few people that I've had as a repeat just because she's had so much success. And her work is original. But I look for all kinds of different things. I've had a 16-year-old who does little pieces of jewelry. I've done big national names because they've had a Kalamazoo connection with Communiteen, a program that happens once a year with the Portage Public Schools, where they have a national best-selling author come in and talk about usually a controversial book. And those are always interesting.
Has there been a conversation that's moved you?
Oh, many, many. One of the more recent ones that has been memorable to me, she was one of those Communiteen authors for Portage Public Schools, invited to come to Kalamazoo and speak to the community, but also with a focus on young people. And her name was Ruta Sepetis, and she was partially Lithuanian. My background is Latvian. My parents came here as refugees from Latvia during World War II. So our languages are very similar. English was actually my second language, and Lithuanian is her language. She's got a lot of that ethnic background. And when I read that book, it's historical fiction, but it really touched me in that it also talked about Latvian refugees, and I recognized experiences that my parents and grandparents had had. And it was also new to me because it talked about a ship that had gone down in the ocean, bombed by the Soviets with refugees on it, and thousands of people died. And I thought, why don't I know about this? And that was the gist of that interview, is why do so few of us know about this? So you'll have to listen to the interview to find out.
Yep, on it. Well, of course, you part of our public media, public radio family. It's wonderful. Who is your audience? Who's out there listening to you?
You know, that's always something that's a wonderment for me. Does anybody out there hear me? And then when I do go out in public, and it's interesting that people don't recognize my face, but I'll be saying something to a friend and people will come up to me and, I know your voice. And that's always kind of fun and also a little spooky. It's like, okay, I have to be careful what I say in public. But I think it's all ages and generations. You know, commuting, like I said, is teenagers, but older people as well. So I think it's a very broad range. And because I cover a very broad range of creative minds out there, I think it's a big audience. At least I certainly hope so. They keep bringing me back.
Good. Zinta, what is it about Kalamazoo that has brought art alive?
What's in the water?
Ooh,
Oh my
that's
gosh,
it.
I hear
That's the
that
question.
question a lot. What's in the water in Kalamazoo? You know, I think a lot of people have tried to answer that. I'm not sure with how much success. It's a wonderful mystery in a way. I personally believe that it has a lot to do with the academic atmosphere that we have. We've got Kalamazoo College, we've got Western Michigan University, we've got Kalamazoo Community College. You know, we've got all this. And I think academia brings about a lot of curiosity, a lot of openness to be creative and explore self-expression of all kinds. But yeah, for some reason that I'm not sure I can identify, we've got art galleries, we've got bookstores. Some in some towns have closed their doors, but we've got bookstores that have been there for a long time. And I've gone to library author readings for poetry, and the place will be packed. And who does that for poetry? I mean, no offense to poets, but we can fill a room, and I think that's wonderful in Kalamazoo. So yeah, it's the perfect place to do a show like this.
Back to storytelling and this art of radio. No one has killed the radio star yet, to put it lightly. This medium, speaking to this microphone, talk to me about how that moves you, I trust, and keeps you doing what you do.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, I certainly know that when I commuted more, instead of doing a show from home with chickens and dogs in the background, that radio was the way I got through those miles and those traffic jams. That was a great time to listen. I think it's the variety. I think it's the local interest. There are few sources for news these days that have such a focus on what's going on in our community. People like to learn about who's living next door, what's going on in town, and we can sometimes go into more depth than perhaps TV news, where they do these quick sound bites. We can get into it a little bit more.
There's something said for a driveway moment where we don't want to leave a conversation with you. Again, how important is it that you capture that attention without me seeing you?
Well, one of the things with 9 minutes, it can be a while, but a lot of times I end up putting a lot of things on the editing floor. We do post the complete interview as well, so people can go online and listen to the longer version. And I don't know, we don't measure those hits, but I certainly hope that people bother, because there's a lot of great material that ends up on the editing floor. So if you really want to know about that artist, I hope people do take the time.
Why support the arts?
Why support the arts? Are you serious? I mean, to me, the arts are everything. I grew up in a family of artists. My father was a Latvian painter, Zinta Aistars. I miss him very much, passed away a few years ago. And I have rooms full of his paintings that I'm trying to get into the art world. So for me, art is everything. In my family, that was the thing that you pursued. Writers, painters, musicians, they were all in my family. I can't imagine life without it. I think of it also as therapy. I've had several people on this show who also have a part of their career is in some psychological field, and they will use it as therapy. They will use it for grief. They will use it for health issues. I've had those kind of conversations with people. I think it is a way for people to express themselves that they can't in any other way.
Well, I'm glad we can bring you visually into our airwaves to talk about what you do behind the microphone so well. Zinta, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching. There's also more to explore with Kalamazoo Lively Arts on YouTube, Instagram, and WGVU.org. We'll see you next time.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.